Hi, everybody. My name's Gay, and I'm an alcoholic. And thanks for inviting me to share my experience, strength, and hope. It's always an honor. And like Glenn just shared with you, my story's in the fourth edition of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And right now, they're asking for stories to be sent in for the fifth edition of the Big Book. So I'm encouraging everybody that when I get a chance to write their story and send it in. And whether it gets selected or not really isn't the point. It's wonderful if it happens, but the process of writing your story out or writing my story out was just really an experience of doing it. And a lot of people want to know how that happened, so I'll share that. But I was going to a Saturday morning women's meeting with one of the ladies I sponsor, and on the way, she was on the Grapevine committee. And on the way home from that meeting, she handed me this little packet of information. And she said, I think we ought to write our stories and send them in. And I was sponsoring her and didn't want to hurt her feelings. And she went to the work to get me that information. So I just wrote my story really, really fast. And I was in school at the time and busy. So I just wrote it fast. And she gave it to me like on a Saturday. And the deadline to send them in, I think, was the next Monday or something. So just a couple of days left in that process. And so I sent it in, I put it in the mailbox. And 3.5 years later, I got a letter in the mail that the fourth edition of the Big Book had been approved and my story had been selected. And I think the deadline is sometime in October. I'm not sure of the date for the stories to go in for the fifth edition. So if y'all are interested, keep that in mind. And um, it was really a surprise because I thought you'd have to know somebody or be something special to have that happen. And I was just another drunk. And so it was really a surprise that phenomena happened for me, and I get to share my story, through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And one day I was in a meeting in Las Vegas, and this lady sitting next to me, I didn't know anyone there, and I just love going to meetings anywhere, anytime I get to. And this lady looked and she picked up the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and she said, Honey, have you ever read this book? And I said, Yes, ma'am, I have. I was younger back then. And she said, Isn't it delicious? And I just love that because I believe our literature is delicious. When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I thought I had arrived because I was bad. I was an alcoholic, and it was kind of like a punishment, as was my first understanding of AA. And it didn't have to be here very long, and it even gets stronger that Alcoholics Anonymous is a treasure, a gift. I've been given the secrets to life. It feels like I've been given a design for living, that no matter what's going on, no matter what troubles come my way, I have a way to work through, respond to life in a way I never did before I got here. You know, um, to give you a little background, my parents had three dates and decided to get married, and they stayed married till death did they part, and 60 something years later, and they had a tragic beginning. They got married. They had a child, and their first child was killed in a tragic car accident. They were eating at a restaurant, and my mom and dad, after the local baseball game in a real small Texas town and called Yorktown, and they were ordering their food, and my brother was like 2 years old at that time or somewhere around that age, and he followed some other kids out, and my parents realized the little boy was gone and jumped up and started looking for him, and they found him with his head pinned between a wheel of a car and a curb. And and it was just traumatic. They were taken by ambulance to the nearest hospital where he was pronounced dead on arrival. And my parents always had this undertow of sadness, but there was also a lot of laughter. My mom found out that she was pregnant shortly after the funeral, and so she had her second child, a little girl, and her name was Joy. And then I was born, and my name is Gay. And then my brother was born, and his name is Happy. And that's not a true story, but I like to tell it. My sister's name is Joy, and my name is Gay, and we call my brother Bubba. And so my parents, had owned lots of different little stores. They owned a fabric store at one time, a shoe store at one time, and then they sold all of those and opened up a bowling lane. So I grew up in a bowling lanes in a little town called Fredericksburg, Texas. And my mom and had us in everything, piano and dance and and Girl Scouts, anything the little town had to offer, we were enrolled in it. And they were good parents. My dad had a lot of anger issues, and whether that came from a bad experience he had in the army, or it came from losing his son, or the way he was brought up, I don't really know. But I know the way it came out of him, and it came out as saying things to me and my brother and my sister like we were dumb and lazy and stupid. And it seemed for my brother and sister that it would go in one ear and out the other. But for me, it always took a detour through my heart. But then I was different than my brother and sister because I was born legally blind. I am legally blind. My visual acuity is 20 over 200, which kind of sort of means if I stood 20 feet from an object and you stood 200 feet from an object, we did see it about the same. In addition to that, I'm color blind and I'm sensitive to light. So that was about all I could handle without being told I was stupid, lazy, and dumb. And I believed it. School was really difficult for me because there had never been a visually impaired student in this little town, in this little school. And it doesn't seem like they knew a whole lot about how to. Today we have special ed in schools. We have all kinds of services available, but back then, when I was a little girl, none of that existed, except one teacher knew about how to get big print books. So she contacted the Library of Congress or whatever it was and ordered me big print books. And I got these books, but they felt like encyclopedias to me, being in the third grade. And I was embarrassed. I was so embarrassed to be different than the other kids. I struggled at recess, when all the other kids were playing, and I'd navigate towards the shady spots because I was so sensitive to lights. And I I I had this undertow inside of me too of sadness, but nobody on the outside would have known that because I didn't want anyone to know that I hurt inside, and I felt so awkward and different and struggled so much. My home life with my brother and sister, we just adapt to each other, as the three of us came along. So I really didn't feel as unique or different or terminally unique. I didn't feel that at home as much as I did at school. And I can remember one time we were playing this game called Red Rover, let so and so come over, and you had two lines of kids, parallel to each other, holding their hands, and whoever's name you call, they'd run, and they'd try to run so fast that they'd break your arm, not break your arms, but make you let go of each other's hands as they ran through. Uh, and I remember playing this little game and at school, and the girl to the right of me told the one to the right of her talking about me, and they used the word handicap. They said she's handicapped, and I didn't know what that word meant, but I knew I didn't like it, and I knew it felt really dirty and shameful. I didn't even know what it meant, but I just didn't want to be that. And I went home and asked my mom what that word meant, and she tried to describe it to me the best she could. And I, being a little kid, thought all my parents' sadness was about me. You know how we are, it's all about me, and didn't realize, that they had had such a tragic experience going on. And I graduated 150 out of 152 out of my high school class. I was right at the bottom of the class, but that didn't surprise me because I already knew my capabilities. They were explained and told to me. So I wasn't overly shocked by that. In fact, I thought that was pretty good because if I graduated 150 out of 152 or whatever the number was, there was a couple of people that were dumber than me. It really is a disease of perception and how we want to view our lives. I Around when I was in the um, eighth grade, started in my freshman year, I was invited to a party, and that party had alcohol. And I had arrived in heaven. I love the way that alcohol made me feel the first time I drank it. I don't remember getting home that night. I don't remember. I don't remember. And but the next morning when I got up, I was nauseated still. I was dizzy. I had thrown up, so I had junk in my hair, and I my first thought was, I want to do that again. I want to do that again and again and again. And when I got into this program and I read that part about the ease and comfort that comes with the first drink, oh my God, I knew what they were talking about. I just loved the way alcohol made me feel. It was amazing. It was wonderful. It was my new best friend. And so from that point on, on weekends, most of my drinking was done on weekends. I drank as often as I could. We drag Main. We go up and down the main street, and then we go through the little hamburger stand, make a little loop around it, and then drag Main again till we find someone old enough to buy us alcohol. Then we'd make loops around the outskirts of the town, while we drank. But even if we had gotten stopped, we would have gotten fussed at. Our parents would have been called, and we would have been driven home. That's how it was handled back then. There wasn't the consequences that are in our legal system today for people that are caught, drinking. My When I got to Alcoholics Anonymous, I my world changed, but that was a journey there. I can remember when I graduated from high school, I didn't know what to do with myself. Nobody did, but my mama had this belief that everyone should go to college for at least one semester to see if they like it, or I don't know. She just thought it was a good experience or something. So I was sent to college. I went through a Arkansas Enterprise for the Blind, college prep for blind people. I had never been around visually impaired people before, so it was quite a journey. And then when that was the summer, and then I started, and I wasn't college material, and I flunked out, so they didn't know what else to do with me. So the Commission for the Blind, that's what it was called then in Texas, the Texas Commission for the Blind, got me a job being their receptionist at their office in San Antonio, which is about 70 miles from Fredericksburg, where I grew up. And I didn't really like that so much. So I thought the next best thing for me to do would be to get married. So I was 20 and my husband was 19, and we got married, and I loved him, and I thought, marriage, that's what I need. That'll make my life happy, that somebody will love me. And um, and that we were a year and 3 months later, we had our first child. So I was 21 at this time, and I loved being a mom. I loved being pregnant. I loved everything about being a mother. And 3.5 years later, I had that same experience with a little girl. And how I didn't drink for a few years there, I don't know. We barely had enough money for food, but I know that doesn't stop an alcoholic. But for some reason, by the grace of God, for a few years there, I didn't drink. And then when my daughter was about 9 months old, because she took her first step, my sister had moved to the Houston area, which is where I was living at that time, and she was going through a divorce, and she she didn't know anyone in the Houston area, so we started going to this country western place called Mickey Gillies, and you'd pay $5, and then you could drink it all you wanted to drink. They had beer bus, and so I started drinking again, and my sister found boyfriends and friends and started dating, and so from that point on, most of my drinking was done at home alone. And we had moved to a little town out on the outskirts of Houston called Humble, Texas, and I my drinking was just getting worse, and I was with some other mothers, and they too were talking about me, and one of them said she's alcoholic, and I was so pissed that they would say that about me. And one time my daughter went into the hospital and she was there for a few days, and when I got and I didn't drink. And I thought really I had solved the alcohol problem. But on the way home, we stopped for Mexican food and I was drunk before I got home. And I promised my husband I would give him a sober wife for his birthday. And I really meant it. Every time I wanted to quit, I really meant I wanted to. I really did. But that phenomenon of craving would happen again, that mental obsession that this time it's going to be different. And there I was, drinking again. And but that night, after the hospital, my daughter being in the hospital, and I got home, I was so ashamed and embarrassed and disgusted being me. And I got on my knees and I said, God, either change me or let me die. I don't want to live this way anymore. And the next morning I got up and I called Alcoholics Anonymous, and there was a meeting about a mile and a half away. And I thought that was kind of unreasonable to have to walk that far to go to an AA meeting. But I had walked that path many times because there was a convenience store right next to that meeting that I didn't mind a bit walking to get my alcohol when I was out. But walking that far to go to a meeting it seemed a little unreasonable to ask, but I did it. And at this meeting, I picked up a desire chip, and a guy gave me a ride home from that meeting. And before he got to my house, he said, honey, you need to learn how to swallow your pride instead of alcohol. His name was Frank B. And another lady stole the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous and gave it to me. And I'm still glad we have thieves in Alcoholics Anonymous, because that's how I got my first big book. And I went in the house and I read the stories first. They seemed easier to read and understand. And I got alcohol, beer, and I drank and I read the big book, and nothing got any better. And about 6 months later, I wondered what I had missed, why AA didn't work for me. I missed that part about don't drink between meetings, but to get a sponsor, work the steps. I missed all that stuff. But I did remember somebody talking about a 12-step call, somebody coming to your house. So I thought that's what I had missed, that someone needed to come to my house and then AA would work. So I called Alcoholics Anonymous for the second time, and they sent two ladies over to my house, to talk to me. And we sat on my bed, and they one of the ladies picked up my hand. and patted it. We went to the bedroom because I didn't want the kids to hear what we were talking about. And one of the ladies, was just so kind, and she'd pat my hand, and I started feeling comfortable and safe, and I started telling them why I drank, that I needed to drink because I was in a bad marriage. This lady looked at me, patted my hand, and said, "Bullshit." And she had the same response, I have to drink because I'm legally blind. She had the same response every time. And finally, I got a little curious and I said, if that's not why I drink, then why do I drink? And they explained to me the disease concept of alcoholism. When I put alcohol in my body, I respond different. That I develop the phenomenon of craving and I have that mental obsession. And they invited me to a meeting that night. And that was on October the 23rd, 1985. I picked up a desired chick, and I haven't had a drink since. I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous more than half my life. I got sober at 33, and today I'm 70 years old, and it's been a journey. It's been twists and turns and rights and lefts and bumps in the road. You can't live that long without life happening. Things happen. I went through a divorce in early sobriety. A year or so down the road, my parents have both passed away. I remarried. I have grandkids. Life just is in movement. I love my grandkids, two granddaughters, and their parents got divorced. My son and my ex-daughter-in-law got divorced. So ex-daughter-in-law took the two little girls and moved to Fredericksburg because that's where she grew up too. And I went to a meeting that night and I was complaining that my granddaughters were moving 70 miles to Fredericksburg, and I was used to being able to see them anytime I wanted. And that night at a meeting, this lady looked at me and she said, "Gay, my grandkids moved to Germany." And just kind of again put things in perspective. I'm complaining about 70 miles up the road and hers were moving to a different country. And but when I got in these rooms, y'all started rearranging every thought and belief system I had. Everything that in my life I got to start looking at differently. When I did the third step prayer with my sponsor looked at me and she said, "Your future's none of your business." And when I got here, I was so full of self-pity and woe is me and victim, and I didn't get my share out of life like my brother and sister did. And it was really painful when they got their driver's license and I didn't get to get a driver's license. And I uh I was just full of self-pity, and y'all taught me the difference between feeling sorry for myself and feeling my pain. It is sad this little girl had to go through all of that. But self-pity is another thing, is when I milk it, use it, it goes on way longer than I should. It's not a normal grieving process. I can turn it into something that's ugly. My dad telling me I was stupid, lazy, and dumb when I did my four-step inventory and I looked at all that stuff. My dad said it. I'm the one that believed it. Maybe I had no cognitive ability as a young child to know, but I'm not a child, and I wasn't a child for years. And I used all that information as a way to milk it and be lazy. So I got to go make an amends to my dad. And my favorite thing to do with him when he was in the nursing home was to go up to Fredericksburg and be able to feed him his meals, and that this inventory work, the healing that happens is absolutely amazing and beautiful. And I got to take every uh, belief system that I created, every ideal that I thought was true, and hold it up to the steps and look at things differently than I'd ever looked at them before. I um, I love our program. I love the way it helps us to rearrange our lives. Real often I tell people that you can rearrange your thoughts like you rearrange furniture, but occasionally there's a piece of furniture that's too heavy to move, or a belief system that's too heavy to move. And that's where the sponsors come in and other people in the program that help me rearrange that. I love the line in the book that says some of us tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result is nil till we let go. Absolutely. I held on to a lot of old ideals that I needed to look at. When I was about a year sober, I was at a women's retreat, and this lady, I was whining and complaining about being in, having to do this work, this inventory work. This lady looked at me and she said, "Gay, you don't have to. You get to. You get to go in side and rearrange all these belief systems. It's a gift, not a punishment." And she also told me that, "Don't you understand, Gay? Because of what you've been through, exactly the way you've been through it, you'll touch someone's life no one else can touch." And that's true for each and every one of us. Because of what you've been through, exactly the way you've been through it, you're going to be able to touch someone's life no one else can touch. And when I did third step prayer with my sponsor the first time, she said, "Your future's none of your business." I had no idea what my future would hold. I was 33 and a young mom. I had no idea what my future would hold. I had no idea what to expect and the twists and turns. But today I can tell you I'm comfortable in my own skin. I was taught I don't know a good day from a bad day or a tragedy from a miracle. I stopped judging my own life and getting really, really curious about my higher power. I was told it by a friend in the program earlier, kept talking about the God of his misunderstanding. I don't know what God's up to, but when I can relax and trust and work the steps, God's always been there. My higher power has always been there, whatever you want to call your higher power. But I didn't know how to tap into that or listen to it because I was riddled with self-pity and fear and ego and all this other stuff. So I couldn't tap into my higher powers. And I believe the steps help us get rid of everything that blocks us. I came into these rooms and you told me that we weren't bad people trying to get good. We were sick people trying to get better. And today I believe we're perfect people trying to remember the truth about who we are. Got so much static, noise, all those old ideals that blocked me from hearing my higher power. I have a friend in the program that talks about if you've gone through the 12 steps and you don't know more about love, you've missed the whole point of the program. And I believe that's true today. When I get rid of all the noise, the statics, the character defects, what is left is love. Love and tolerance is our code. I knew that I wouldn't mind doing the 12 step, and practicing these principles in all my affairs and having people, I feel the 12 step is kind of where we get our assignments from God. And, I knew I wouldn't mind, that, but somewhere along the line, I realized I couldn't do the 12 step if I didn't do the 11th step and connect to a higher power. And I can't do the 11th step and connect to a higher power if I have all this static going on, this noise in my head going on. And I can't do the 10th step and continue to get rid of it if I've never done it to begin with. And I can't do the 10th step if I haven't done the 9th step to make amends and clean up the mess I made. And I can't do the 9th step if I haven't done the 8th step to figure out those amends that I need to make. And I don't have the integrity to do the 8th step if I haven't done the 7th step and ask God to remove my character defects. Can't do the 7th step if I haven't done the 6th step to know what character defects are here that I need to turn over to a higher power. And the assignment I was given in the sixth step that was really meaningful to me was that my sponsor said, what if you woke up tomorrow morning and that character defect was gone? One of my character defects was fear. What would I do if I woke up tomorrow morning, the fear was gone? What would I do? That exercise helped me know if I was really willing to let go of the character defect. I love the little assignment. But I can't make a list and become willing of my character defects in six if I haven't run this by another human being in my higher power and done a fifth step. And I've got nothing to share in the fifth step if I haven't done the fourth step and done my inventory work, and looked at the stuff, the resentment, the fear inventory, the sex conduct inventory. If I haven't looked at all that stuff, I've got nothing to share in the fifth step. And I don't know who would do a fourth step if they haven't done a third step and invited their higher power in. I love the third step prayer, and then we launch to do the rest of the steps. I make a decision to turn my life over to God. My future's none of my business, and I start this journey with my higher power. And I can't turn my life over to a higher power if I haven't done the second step and admitted I'm a little not insane. It's not all fitting together here, right? That I need help, and I can't do the second step and admit I'm, that I, need to be restored to sanity if I haven't done the first step and admit I'm powerless over alcohol and my life's unmanageable. And I started understanding the design for living. It started for the first time. It wasn't individual steps. It's this process of living life on life's terms and a way to respond to life differently. I had a lady that recently asked me to sponsor her, and she said, why do I need a sponsor? She said, I'm asking you because I feel like I'm supposed to, but do I really need a sponsor? And I said, why would you want to miss it? Why would you want to miss having someone in your life that can help you look at things differently? I had my first sponsor would say over and over, Gay, there's another way of looking at this other than the way you're looking at it right now. They told me I can't fix the crap in my head with the crap in my head. I needed someone else that could point out to me a different way to look at some of this stuff, you know. Uh, but the miracles that happen as I work the steps, to share, one of them with you is when my son graduated from high school. I told him the same thing my mom told me, that he needed to go to college for at least one semester. It's funny how we pass things on. And but when he signed up for college, I did too. We took a history class together, and I scored higher than he did. I read the book and he didn't. He didn't continue, but I did. And in 2001, I graduated magna cum laude. So I'm not college material, but I have a degree. I'm a drunk, but I have 36 years of sobriety. Miracles happen in this program. And my daughter did go to college and she got a degree. And after she graduated, I took her on a cruise to Alaska to celebrate her graduation. And a few years later, I thought, my son's life is just as valuable as my daughter's. Not everyone needs a degree. And I invited my son to go on that cruise to celebrate his life too. And he and I went, and we were sitting there in front of the glaciers. And my son looked at me and he said, Mom, I feel so insignificant. And I looked back at him and I said, I feel significant because I'm part of this. I'm part of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm part of my higher powers world. This program has helped me to be comfortable in my own skin and connect to the miracles, to connect, to be part of life. Life isn't happening to me. I'm not a victim. I never was. I get to experience my life. Other people get to experience, whatever they're like. I get to experience being legally blind. Someone else gets to experience being a president of the United States, or a nurse, or a doctor, or a teacher, or a housewife, or a house husband, or a trash collector. It really doesn't matter. They're just experiences. And I stopped judging that one was more valuable than another. And I started accepting my life, the life my higher power gave me to live. And I started growing. I don't believe I can make it on yesterday's sobriety. I do not believe that's possible. If I don't keep doing what I've been doing, I don't think I'm going to keep getting what I've been getting. A life that's just this wonderful, and then it's not, and there's a hard something happens, and then I get to work this, apply the steps to that. I have never been 70 years before. You're 70 years old before. I don't know how to do 70. I knew how to do 69, but I don't know how to do 70, and I'm not going to know how to do 71. I don't know how to respond to the changes that are happening in my older body. You know, I need the steps as much today as I ever have, because life keeps changing, but the steps don't. The steps apply to the things that are going on today, just like they apply to the things that were going on when I was 33, a young mom, and walking into these rooms. This is a design for living that works at every decade of my life. And I am blessed that I have been taught this. Today, if something sad happens, I can cry. And if something funny happens, I can laugh. And if somebody needs help, I can give. And if I'm the one that needs help, I can ask. Today I get to show up and live life from a place that I'm part of life, not apart from, on the fringes, left out. What was me? I get to be part of Alcoholics Anonymous and part of life. And even today, I get very, very curious as to what my higher power is up to. Just what's going to happen next. And before I got here, it didn't matter how good things got. I always had this feeling that don't get too excited, something bad's going to happen. And since I've been in Alcoholics Anonymous, it doesn't matter how hard or bad life gets. I always have the feeling everything's going to be okay. I had a friend in the program, lots of friends in this program, but this one said, don't let a good resentment go to waste. Don't let a good fear go to waste. Don't let an experience go to waste. I believe everything is designed that I may grow. They told me, how free do you want to be? How free do you want to be? Come all the way in, sit all the way down, and stay. I have a friend in the program that I go to, Young in Sobriety. He says, he said his sponsor told him, come all the way in, sit all the way down, and shut up. That's what his sponsor told him. I was told, stay, just stay with us, and let the magic, the miracle of the steps, transform your life like it has so many of us. And, I learned to be able to breathe and relax and trust each new experience that comes, and not judge it as a good experience or a bad experience, because I don't know how it's all going to fit together in the end, and how it's all going to work. There's a guy at the meeting that I go to that has 30 something years of sobriety. And I love one thing he shares frequently with newcomers is that when he got here, he had choices. And the reading we read last night at the 5:30 meeting I go to was about choices. And he shared, I get to choose my character. I get to choose my integrity. I get to choose my beliefs. When my higher power is involved, I get to choose, and I get to be an adult. No, it was me that said this part, but I get to be an adult. Adults make decisions, and adults take responsibility for the consequences of their decisions. I get to live life and I get to learn from every mistake I make. Sometimes our mistakes are the biggest blessings we get because they help us to grow and learn. It doesn't have to be so scary to make a mistake. My husband says I laugh at myself more than anyone he knows when I make a mistake. You know, y'all taught me to wear life like a loose garment to experience it, and I don't have to be perfect. I don't have to do everything right, but I get to show up with an open heart and remain teachable. And uh, I just thank y'all for letting me share my experience, strength, and hope with you today. And stay. You newcomers, come all the way in, sit all the way down, and stay and experience the miracle of Alcoholics Anonymous. Thanks for letting me share.